Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. A young St. Michael mother who gained notoriety on Facebook for kicking her young daughter has pleaded guilty to the charge. However, Latoya Morris won't know what those kicks will cost her until May. Michelle Arthur reports.
22-year-old mother agreed she was guilty of committing a crime against her daughter under the Prevention of Cruelty to Children Act. The court heard that in October last year, Latoya Morris raised her foot and pushed against the 9-month-old's head rough enough for it to be considered a kick. The incident was recorded by her ex-boyfriend. But it made its way to Facebook after Morris sent her ex-boyfriend a message which caused him to feel hurt. He then sent the video to the baby's father before uploading it to Facebook. Morris told police her action was meant to be playful, but she admitted it came after an argument with the child's father. She told the court, "He was telling me bad things. I put my foot on her head, but I wasn't kicking her." The court also heard from a representative of the Ministry of Social Care, which has a 2-year program for people in poverty that Morris is attending. The officer explained Morris is part of a housekeeping program and that her family is getting assistance with family dynamics and health matters. He told the court he was surprised to hear of the actions of the mother who joined his program in December last year, as he had never witnessed any such behavior, either with the 9-month-old baby or her 2- or 4-year-old siblings. During the bail hearing, the baby's paternal grandfather, Kenneth Green, said he was willing to stand bail for the mother, as he too had never witnessed any such behavior towards his granddaughter. Green explained that the child spent weekends at his Haynesville St. James home and that he supported the child because his son was not working. In granting bail, Magistrate Christy Cuffy Sargent told the young mother to deal with any issues with the father and not with the child. She told Morris a 9-month-old baby could not defend herself, nor could a 5, 10, or 15-year-old. She added, "Children rely on us, parents and adults, to protect them, not to cause them injury, and especially so if you're a mother." The magistrate also pointed out that if the issues were serious enough, the police were there to intervene and assist. As part of the bail requirements, Morris was directed to the probation department for an interview. A report will be given during her sentencing hearing on May 4th. Also appearing in court today in an unrelated matter was 43-year-old Sean Innes of no fixed place of abode, who is charged with murdering Shirley Rogers sometime between February 13th and 14th. Rogers was found at a bus stop near Cheapside with stab wounds. Innes returns to court on March 22nd. Meanwhile, 17-year-old Isaiah Abraham Cody Wiggins of Scarborough Christchurch also made his second appearance in court. This time the charge has been upgraded to murder in the death of 23-year-old Kesmar Shaquille Codrington of Browns Avenue, Bayville, St. Michael. Wiggins returns to court on February 22nd. Michelle Arthur, CBC News.
Thanks, Michelle. It appears teachers are split on the issue of metal detectors in schools. President of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, Marianne Redmond, tells CBC News there is no unanimous position on the issue. The matter was raised following a rise in violent incidents in schools.
As some teachers feel that they could bring some measure of security, others are of the opinion that, given how our schools are laid out, the fact that they're spread over quite large areas, some of the areas are compromised in terms of broken fences and broken walls or walls that are easy to scale and so on. They feel that the use of metal detectors in such circumstances might not be as effective as persons might think.
Ms. Redmond says children can easily hide weapons.
You may enter one area and be scanned and found free of a weapon, and you're able to walk into the school and retrieve a hidden weapon, or have someone outside of the school throw something over the wall, over the fences, and so on. These are things that we know have happened, and some persons don't feel that the use of metal detectors in that way would necessarily address the problem.
The Kiwanis Club of Barbados South has launched a new project to combat bullying in schools and create a positive change on the island. The initiative will take 2 formats, including a panel discussion slated for May and a mural at a secondary school. President Keith Hall explains it is geared towards targeting children between the ages of 6 and 16, their parents, and the general public.
We came to grips with the fact that there is a lot of bullying in our schools, and we are primarily, as Kiwanians, concerned about the level of violence in our schools. And we as Kiwanians seek to try to put some type of grip on that.
The club's past president, Trevor Allen, believes everyone has a role to play to stamp out bullying.
People ask the question, what is the government doing? Well, it's not only the government that has a role to play in solving this problem. It's organizations like ours and others that can tap in and say to people, today's bully does not have to be tomorrow's criminal. So we want to step in there early and try to put a stop to this.
The Royal Barbados Police Force has a partner in the Barbados Road Safety Association as lawmen move to enforce the amended Road Traffic Act that prohibits cell phone use. Motorists are prohibited from driving or operating a vehicle while holding and using a mobile phone. President of the BRSA, Charmaine Rowland-Bowen, supports the measures, saying they will reduce the number of accidents on the nation's roads.
It has been a long time in coming, and persons should have been aware of it, and they were given time to practice, and get the Bluetooth items installed in their vehicles. And we fully support it. We feel that it, as I said, it's too long in coming, and such a move such as this, can reduce the number of accidents that we are having on our roads. Statistics would prove that most of the accidents that we have been having over the years have been attributed to inattention and attention diverted, which would relate to persons driving distracted. This is a very dangerous act, as it not only poses a danger for the person who is distracted, but for other bystanders and innocent road users.
Mrs. Rowland-Bowen is reminding motorists of the need to be vigilant and responsible when behind the wheel.
Don't want a repeat of what happened on our roads last year, losing 28 persons in 1 year. That, okay, we don't want a repeat of that. And we want persons to take their responsibility, look out for each other, abide by the road rules, and, out there, drive as if your life depends on it, because your life really depends on it, and someone else will.
We'll take a commercial break here and come back with more news. The Barbados Water Authority has put a timeline on getting the deep injection wells up and running as a means to address sewage issues on the island's south coast. This is one of the most recent short-term measures introduced by the BWA, and it's expected it will allow them some breathing room to fix breaches on the sewage line. Joining us live now to tell us more about the current work being done on the south coast is BWA General Manager Keith Roy Halliday. Mr. Halliday, good evening.
Good evening, Shane.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get straight to it. Seeing as they are a short term, how critical are the injection wells to the overall fix?
The injection wells really are serving a specific purpose, emergency disposal, and they are extremely critical in terms of the steps or the progressive steps that have been taken towards moving to getting a resolution in place. The short-term measures that we have been pursuing aggressively and have been managing over the last while have not proven to be as fruitful as we would like, simply because the situation has been worsening. So while initially we had some success and we have ways of success, we recognize that unless we get the injection wells quickly in place, we will be having a very significant challenge in terms of keeping the overflows off of the streets.
Okay. Well, we can't pretend. You walk the length and breadth of Barbados and you know that this issue of sewage on the south coast is a hot button topic.
Yes.
We're hearing things a lot about environmental threats. Now, how much of those things we hear and we read them and we see them on social media, how much of that is real and how much is exaggerated about what's happening on the south coast and the threat to the environment? Well,
it's good to see Barbadians particularly engaged in this type of endeavor, given the challenges that we've had. We have been working very closely with the Ministry of Health, very closely with EPD, as well as the Coastal Management Unit in the development of this project. It's not a project that we have taken lightly, but at the same time, it is really the least of the worst evils in terms of the solutions, the immediate solutions in front of us. And it's certainly preferable to having sewage on the streets or running into the swamp or running into the sea near or on our beaches. So for us, this has become very significant, and, or rather has become really a critical solution or critical endeavor. From an environmental standpoint, based on our research, based on what we're doing, based on what we're seeing done globally, based on the fact that quite a number of injection wells have been done both locally and elsewhere, we are not unduly worried about the environmental impact. We're talking about wells that are, in the first instance, being dug to about 300, and then we're casing them to a sufficient level so that the sediment will not fall back, or that you don't have the stuff or the effluent finding a way to clog or to come back, or if I can put it as loosely as that. But essentially, the wells will allow for the effluent to be diffused at a sufficiently deep level that it will go out to sea, and the dilution factor is so significant that we expect really not to see any significant environmental impact, if at all any. Certainly, where the potable water is concerned, we've addressed this several times. There's no risk to our potable water supply at this point.
Okay. You can talk about effluent being going
effluent is basically the treated sewage. It comes into a plant. Basically, we filter out the solids, apply some measure of treatment, and then that waste, that effluent, is then discharged. Yeah.
So when people are listening to you right now, they're hearing all the technical points. When they get a message on WhatsApp or see something on Facebook, what they're seeing is sewage bubbling up from in the streets.
Yes.
At some points. So if I can speak for them, what is being done right now to address those types of issues?
Well, we're still continuing to do the short-term measures, which is to control the levels by holding it back at the lift station, to divert some of them to the base street lift station, to the Bridgetown plant, by virtue of our bypass that is in effect now, by taking off a number of those key residential commercials that are having challenges on the network. We're actually reverting them, or in terms of to a septic tank or a well. We have also been in continuing the process of installing backflow preventers. What we have done particularly recently is to engage in a significant flushing program. When the lines are fully charged, we have some challenges, but we're making some progress there now.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic that we could probably talk about for the entire night, but we don't have enough time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shane. Thanks for having us.
Okay, the proposed expansion of the Spring Garden desalination plant has been met with concerns and queries coming from residents and businesses in the surrounding area. Some of these came to light during a recent town hall meeting at the St. Stephen's Anglican Church, hosted by the Barbados Water Authority, along with representatives from Ionics Freshwater Limited and SB Global. It was during this meeting that it was also revealed that one family had never been compensated for land acquired by government for the original plant. That's almost 20 years ago.
We know that there was talk about acquiring it, and we know from even just visually looking at where the desalination plant is that they have taken up some of the land. But we couldn't quite find out who to talk to as regards as if it was acquired. We have received no notification, definitely no compensation as a family or anything like that.
Ms. Archer went on to reveal that they were still receiving water and land tax bills for the land that was now thousands of dollars in arrears. In attendance at the meeting was Minister of Finance Chris Sinclair, who is also the representative for the area. He says the family would need to be compensated for the loss of use of the land and promised a full investigation into the matter.
What would have to happen is that they would then have to be paid. And of course that would have to be adjusted for the number of years by way of interest that they have been denied peaceful enjoyment of the land. But immediately the investigation will have to be to establish what went wrong with the acquisition. And as you could imagine, it's 17 years on, so 18 years, 17 years, 18 years. So somebody has to go into the files and dig that up.
The international craze surrounding popular film Black Panther has finally hit local theaters, and the response from Barbadians is unprecedented. Kareem Smith has the story.
Wakanda. If you've never heard the word before, well, it was only a matter of time. It's most commonly associated with the Black Panther movie, which is breaking records across the world. But it's also breaking box offices in Barbados as well.
Don't freeze. I never freeze.
Thousands came out for Wednesday night's premiere, resulting in approximately 10 shows being declared sold out at the country's 2 major cinemas well before showtime.
We actually came an hour early just to make sure we get the show. We want to get good seats. Yeah.
It's the whole process to watch Black Panther. You can't just show up
to the movie.
Yeah, you have to plan. It's a process, and we're very excited. I'm so glad it finally reached Barbados.
And it seems they weren't the only ones who felt that way.
My son, it is your time.
From Lime Grove Cinemas to the Olympus Theatres at Sheraton Mall, moviegoers came out clad from head to toe in their finest dashikis and other traditional African garb. The movie, which is based on the Marvel comic The Black Panther, is said to have taken black visibility to a whole new level for its portrayal of Africans and African Americans in the first blockbuster, featuring black superheroes and an almost entirely black cast. Sales and marketing manager at Olympus Theatres, Marlene Wilson, says Wednesday night was extremely busy.
Well, I can tell you safely, there's no tickets available for the 9:30 tonight in Expo. There's no tickets available in VIP either. And the 6:15 is also sold out. I could not tell when last we had a hype like this. I must say the Barbadian community on a whole has really come together on this. You feel your African roots, and it just brings everyone back to this sense of pride. So, and even my staff, we're all dressed out in our African gear this evening, so everyone is excited about it.
And because of the tremendous hype, many Barbadians went home disappointed because they couldn't get inside.
I'm a huge fan of the character from the comics. This was surreal. I wanted to see this. It's sold out now, 9:30. Gotta try to find somewhere else to see it. I don't know, it's like they canceled Christmas. In all fairness, I would go in and sit on these steps if I could. I'm not picky, but but it's how it is,
On the inside, however, we sat in on a special screening attended by a number of well-known Barbadians, including Minister of Culture Stephen Lashley, Cultural Ambassador the Mighty Gabby, and political activist David Comachon. And after approximately 2 hours of action, suspense, and even comedy, I am yet to hear a bad review.
I'ma burn it all! It's great to see ourselves on screen. I find it's a great story. It really, there's a lot of broad stroking, but it really captures maybe the imagination of what we'd be like.
The setting was more African setting like that, and it really came together with the whole Black awareness month and stuff. I really like that.
I really fascinated because I see so many people here in African garbs, and it's a wonderful feeling to see that black people are proud of who we are, even in our dress, our hairstyles. Everything I enjoyed about this night here, and I don't ever make it through a whole movie. I just sleep, and I sleep tonight.
Many also believe Barbados is experiencing a turning point in black consciousness and awareness.
We're all involved in culture and in education, and our young people are taking on something that I think we need to give them the space to really take it on. And I think if we do that, our filmmakers, our educators, our dancers, our actors are going to be able to show us ourselves in a way that we will be proud of.
There's a thirst out there for the knowledge about ourselves. There's a thirst out there to see yourself in your African garment and be proud of that. So we need to allow that opening to happen, and as John says, support them, and wonderful things will happen from there.
The movie was described as so good, it compelled a group of rhythm tribe dancers to break out in an intense African dance routine. It's a fitting climax to the month of African awareness and an overwhelming display of black power right here in Barbados. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Nice, Kareem. Black consciousness remains a critical tool for instilling a greater level of self-confidence in young people. After last night's screening of the Black Panther movie, Minister of Culture and Youth Stephen Lashley lauded the work of local Afrocentric groups for maintaining a sense of pride among Barbadians for their identity.
The Commission on Pan-African Affairs, the Mabalozi program, we still have some work to do, but we're working quite a lot with the young people. I think that consciousness have got to begin with the young people, and they're responding well, understanding who we are as a black people, understand our Africanness, That's important. And of course, that has to do with reinstilling the idea of self-confidence. Quite a lot of what we have to do in terms of developing ourselves has to do with how confident we are. And we have a responsibility to reinforce that consciousness and confidence lies in our ancestry.
Still to come, regional countries affected by last year's super hurricanes are still struggling to restore full power. We'll tell you why. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has announced that general elections will be held there in a matter of weeks. He made the statement in the lower house of Parliament this morning, in what he said will be the last sitting before the next general election is held. The announcement comes after months of public speculation that an early election would have been called. The Prime Minister was speaking as he tabled the Boundaries Commission report, which, in light of expected early elections, did not propose any changes to the constituency boundaries. The commissioners said any changes at this time would likely result in a disruption of the process. And as the announcement of the Antigua Parliament's dissolution was made, opposition leader and former Prime Minister Baldwin Spencer said farewell to the House of Representatives for the last time. He said since he is not running for office again, once Parliament is dissolved, he will not be returning to the House. The former two-term Prime Minister during the United Progressive Party's tenure thanked the people for allowing him to serve. Spencer is presently serving his sixth unbroken term in the House. He was first elected in 1989 and has been the MP for St. John's Rural West for 29 years. Following the 2014 general election, Spencer said that he would retire from elective politics. Given the level of devastation suffered during the passage of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, several Caribbean countries are still working to restore full power. Their efforts are being hampered. Generation manager of the Dominica Electricity Services Limited, Dave Stamp, says Domlec is facing severe competition for resources and personnel from other electricity companies in the region. Mr. Stamp says Dominica will have to bring in additional crew to assist with restoration.
We estimate that we need an additional 60 overseas resources from Carry Lake, from other utilities, and even we're recruiting overseas linemen contract companies in order to fill this gap. So currently on the ground, we have just about 42 additional overseas line resources to assist us. It's our intention in the next 2 weeks to have this complement brought up to about 60. And with this 120 line resources, we think we can significantly increase the rate of restoration.
Mr. Stamp says Domlec supports efforts at making the country climate resilient.
We simply need to look at how we have done, how we have built the system, look at the lessons learned, look at the damage assessments that was done, and understand some of the failure modes that happened, and be able to correct these. So in our current build back process, where we're building back in order to restore the system as is, we're looking at improving those methods. So we're upgrading, we're currently doing upgrades to our pole class and pole type. So the types of poles and the class of poles that we have on the system, we're currently upgrading those, because we have seen some situations where, and especially the heavy laden poles, the poles that have the transformers and all of the T&D equipment, a lot of those poles failed.
Guyana's President David Granger wants every region in the country to move towards providing all its residents with public services. He wants to see the standard of living boosted along with the regional economies.
Each region should have its own business districts. Each region should have its own industrial centers, its own factories. Each region should have its own port of entries. Stop this backtracking business. But most of all, each region should have its own radio station to communicate with its residents.
President Granger recently addressing residents in South Rupununi during the commissioning of Radio Aishalton in Aishalton Village, Region 9. According to the president, it is the right of every Guyanese, regardless of geographic location, to access public services, since only then can they be equipped to make informed choices and decisions.
It is my view that the designation of Lethem as a capital tongue gave effect to this principle of regionalism, because I feel that Lethem is going to become a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse for developing this entire region. Government of Guyana is government of regions, for regions, by the regions. Government cannot operate only at central level, but it's the important link is the regional level.
President Granger added that capital towns are important to Guyana because they can expedite enterprise and economic development in their respective regions by increasing investment and generating employment and much more.
It is through these capital towns, through municipalities, and through the central government working together that we'll be able to enhance and accelerate the development of our regions. Every region must be able to provide public services.
In Jamaica, Minister of Education Roel Reid says recent threats of intentions to carry out a mass shooting by a high school student should serve as a wake-up call for all schools to activate their safety and security plans. We hear more in this report from TVJ.
On Monday, parents, teachers and students at the Wilmers Boys School in Kingston went into panic mode after an 18-year-old student at the institution sent out a voice note threatening violence against his fellow students. Since the incident, Education Minister Roel Reid says he too is concerned.
Before I even heard about this voice note, it was something I've always been concerned about, whether or not we would have those kind of situation affecting our school system.
His opposition counterpart, Ronald Thwaites, also condemns the act.
We have to be able to detect students under stress and under pressure, not to excuse their wrong behavior, but to treat them before such incidents will arise. I'm hoping that we can include more social workers in school, more diagnosis of likely pathologies, emotional disturbances among our young people from the very earliest ages.
Mr. Reid says the Education Ministry is working to prevent any incidents of violence in schools. He says this latest incident should be a wake-up call for all schools to activate their safety and security plan.
For the Guidance and Counsel Department to track the students that are perceived and are known to be very vulnerable, and so we can respond. Equally, at the school security management level, right, as what the safety and security calls for, is to ensure that there are no weapons taken to our schools, no weapons brought on campus. So that is also a very protective mechanism.
This is in addition to panic buttons at schools as well as other safety devices.
A sports update is next, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Anti-doping rule violations number 3. Doping is defined as refusing to undertake a drug test when notified by official doping control personnel. This fact is brought to you compliments the National Anti-Doping Commission.